Hey Yagaho guys, welcome to week 6 of the GBA. This week, the 1-4 Utah Jasmine traveling down to New Orleans to play the 3-2 Pelippers, definitely one of the most fearsome teams in the league. And this week's a bit of an interesting week. I guess we can really just boil it down to a lack of communication between myself and John, aka Pokemon, the coach of the Pelippers. We kind of didn't really get together until midweek and then decided, Thursday's probably the best day. I ended up missing out on Thursday, as we didn't set an exact time, and then I was under the assumption, well, maybe Friday and Saturday should still work. We might have to be at a weird time, but we can make it happen. Not the case, as he actually ended up being on a trip and starting Friday morning, and was not back until Sunday night. So there was robble about stuff and things. Anyway, so he gets back, and we're both kind of in agreement. Neither of us really want to take a forfeit loss off the other one. That's kind of not why we're here. We're here to play games and have fun. And bring content to you guys. That's what the GBA is all about. So anyway, Sunday night he gets back, and we decide, we got our teams ready. Let's go ahead and actually play the game, huh? All right. So like I said, super threatening team we're going up against this week. And if you don't recognize the Pelippers, if you've been in and out of the GBA, you might recognize their roster as being very similar to the Orlando Milotics last year, and that would be because Pokemon had a very interesting introduction to the GBA. Literally 3 days, I think, before this first game. He came in, and the Orlando Milotics coach was removed from the league for reasons I'm not going to get into. And in comes John, and kind of a trial by fire, having to get the pokes really quick. But he's done pretty well so far, and we're certainly glad to have him. And look at this team we're up against right here. We got Terrakion, Sylveon, Conkeldurr, Deoxys defense, Uber or not outside the GBA does not matter. Rotom Heat, Nidoking, and not being brought, Talonflame, Galvantula, Azumarill, Forretress, and Mega Tyranitar. This team is stacked, I tell you. So the mentality this week was going to have to change. Of course, we've had this, defense first mindset. We've been a very defensive-oriented team. Not this week. He's got Terrakion. He's got Conkeldurr. Those are going to pick apart Chansey and Zapdos. I feel like if we try to bring defense this week, we're going to stall around, maybe get a kill. We're going to get broken down. It's just not going to work out. So instead, we're going to go heavy on the offense this week. And the big chink in the armor that I identified pre-game was a nice weakness to water. The only water resist in the form of Azumarill, which is not exactly a tanky thing. It can be, but usually is not used as one. So that's going to start us off with kind of setting the tone. Choice Spec Suicune. We got Hydro Pump and Surf. There's no need for Ice Beam. His only thing that is weak to Ice Beam that's not weak to water is nothing. So there's no need to bring that. HP Electric just in case the Azumarill did want to come. And then the cheeky Toxic on there. Last minute addition just for Deoxys defense mostly. I felt like Deoxys defense with this team set-up was going to be a big problem. If he thinks, he specs, he doesn't have Toxic or anything, or just switch in Wallet, well, maybe we can land a nice Toxic on there. Steelix is going to get some love this game. We're not bringing Chansey. I'd like to bring some kind of form of Stealth Rock. He was here mostly as a switch into Talonflame with Rocky Helmet to add on the recoil damage. I was definitely very afraid of Roost Talonflame. Fortunately, it ended up not getting brought at all. But, we want to try to get rocks up. Also running Rock Slide to kill that Talonflame, and a little extra surprise in the form of Jasmine's TM. I felt like we wanted to run that this week for reasons I'll talk about at the end of the video. Whimsicott is just going to run Subseed. He has no Grass Immunes, barring, I guess, Sap Sipper, Azumarill. So I felt like that would be pretty much okay. And also running Giga Drain and Grass Whistle as a sweep stopgap. 55% chance to not lose the game on an ensuing sweep. So that's going to be Whimsicott. Don't expect him to do too much, as Subseed's not very effective against anything with reliable recovery, which he's got a couple of those with Wish Sylveon and Recover Deoxys defense, certainly. Gallade's going to be a big player this week for the first time, running Drain Punch, Max HP, Leftovers, Poison Jab just for Sylveon, as well as Azumarill. Should be able to do some big damage to it. I thought about running Rock Slide to try to catch Talonflame on a switch-in, but it was going to be just for Talonflame, and I figured you can't really argue with the utility of Knockoff. It also gives him a big hit on Deoxys defense as well, and of course Shadow Sneak for priority. Another kind of interesting set, I guess, Choice Scarf Cloyster. I didn't feel like I was going to have much of a chance to set up really on anything, and you'll notice there is no setup anywhere on this team. We've got choice items, which I tend to shy away from. But we're running 2 of them this week, and that's because I didn't really feel like I had any time to set up a Shell Smash or anything like that. He's got a couple things that could Scarf and cancel that as well. So it's just offensive Scarf, of course, physical, of course, Skill Link and Ice Shard, all that usual stuff that you might expect. I was debating between Specs and Scarf on Suicune, which would have made it either Choice Band or Choice Scarf. On Cloyster, ended up deciding to give Cloyster the Scarf and Suicune the Specs. And then last but not least, we got Mega Alakazam, really liking the substitute for him. And then had to bring 3 attacks this week. I didn't want to bother bringing setup any once again, Calm Mind, etc. So I felt like I had to bring Focus Blast for Mega Tyranitar, and then Shadow Ball, which was there mostly for Deoxys defense. And I decided to run Psychic over Psyshock this week, which was I think his only real special wall would really be Sylveon. So I'm just gonna kind of hope that that gets taken out by somebody else. But that's it for the pregame. Let's get into the actual game, and we got some interesting stuff going on this game. So yeah, definitely some firsts. Alright, so from the team preview, we saw no Forretress, and that means no Spin, no Defog. If we get rocks up, they're going to stay up. And so I'm going to take a bit of a risk and lead out with Steelix, Snake Man, see if we can get that turn 1 Stealth Rock going on. And unfortunately, he does lead out with Deoxys defense. Now, of course, I'm aware it's Compact Taunt, but I'm going to force him to reveal it. I'm going to go ahead and go for rocks. He does reveal it, so, we're kind of back where we started, except now I've got information on his, he does have Taunt, and, that's good to know. So I don't have Crunch or anything to really hit this thing hard with. Not that Steelix hits anything hard to begin with. So I'm going to switch out here, as we can't accomplish too much. If he does want to set up hazards like he did last week against Nexus, I do have Rapid Spin on Cloyster, even though it's Choice Scarfed, just in case we got into a situation, especially with like Sticky Web on Galvantula, where the hazards were just too great. I needed to sacrifice Cloyster, at least, a turn of potential offensive threatening for a spin. So that is on the set. That is an option I have available, although it's one I would certainly prefer not to have to take. But ultimately, we're going to switch out into Gallade here, and, potentially threaten a Swords Dance and a knockoff and whatnot. And he gets a crit knockoff himself, which also activates Justified. So definitely very glad I've got that over Steadfast. Gallade's certainly not the best user, probably the worst user of Justified, as he doesn't resist Dark. But, it certainly gets a little bit of an advantage there. So I could knock off here, but even with the +1, it's not going to KO, and that's going to make future knockoffs weaker. As we saw against Blaz or Uniclus in week 3, that's, kind of not a great situation. So I'm just going to go Poison Jab and maybe get something Poison on a switch in, and the absolute best thing possible comes in, which is Sylveon gets a nice +1 Poison Jab and gets the Poison proc, so that thing's going to be down into red, and that is prime KO range from here. We can just go for anything, really. I'm keen on going for Drain Punch, as it's going to do about 25%. Thanks to that poison damage, that's definitely in range, and we'll get some hit points back to make up for that crit. And yeah, he's just going to leave it in to die. It's certainly at low enough HP that just about anything can kill it, and Steelix has Iron Tail for it as well. That's about the only thing I've got that's slower. So yeah, it's a huge threat out of the way as defensively, and that's, his special wall gone. Now Megazam is definitely looking a lot brighter. He has not as much special bulk to take hits with. So in comes Rotom Heat, and it could Will-O-Wisp, it could T-Wave, it could do horrible things, or it could just Scarf and be offensive. I don't really know right now. I'm definitely, however, not going to take the risk on getting Proto Man burned. I feel like Gallade's going to be a decent matchup against Conkeldurr with Drain Punch, especially if he, for some reason, still wants to go for Knockoff, which I've already lost my item, so probably not. It also resists Terrakion Stab. It can do a good number to it with Drain Punch and maybe Shadow Sneak to finish it off. All sorts of good stuff we could have happening there. Heck, we could threaten Psycho Cut, even though I don't actually have it against the Conkeldurr. But we are going to withdraw here into the thing that cares about burn the least, which is going to be Suicune. It's obviously especially attackive, and it's offensive, so it's not going to be bothered too much by the damage over time. So I think I calc it here, and depending on if he's specially defensive or not, Surf might not KO if he's specially defensive. Hydro Pump I'm pretty sure will regardless. But I decided to go for Surf, as it's going to, probably 2-hit KO a good number of things, and he doesn't have his only water resist, so it's going to hit at least neutrally here. And in comes Conkeldurr and takes under half, which to me says it's most likely Assault Vest. And I'm kind of sad I did not go Hydro Pump there, as it likely would have 2-hit KO'd, but at the same time it likely also would have missed. So, I'm not going to fret too much about it. Drain Punch, we still have a lot of bulk despite being an offensive Suicune. It's naturally bulky. and Drain Punch is not going to get him back too much HP, and I'm pretty sure, I think that did round about, I forget exactly how much, but anyway, I decided that he's going to at best get off 1 Drain Punch and then die to 2 Surfs is what looks like it's going to happen. And so in comes DOD. He doesn't want to take that option, of course, and takes the Surf pretty okay. So of course I'm Specs on to Surf, and it's not doing nearly enough damage. You know, this thing does have Toxic. You know, maybe he wants to go Knock Off at some point, and that would, you know, remove my Specs, of course, but would also free me up to throw a nice Toxic on this guy. But I think what I'm going to do here is switch out, you know, maybe we'll end up switching him back in to try to get Toxic on there and switch moves. I don't know if he'll think something's up with that, but we're going to go into Steelix here and maybe try to get Rocks up again, or maybe just, you know, sling Iron Tails at him and hope that we get some defense rate drops as we are sturdy instead of Sheer Force, but it disconnects. So that's unfortunate. However, we weren't too many turns into the game. What was that? Maybe about 10. You know, I consider that a few turns in the game. So we are able to pretty much replay it. I think the only difference was Sylveon did not get the poison proc, so I think we still got the crit on knockoff on Gallade. But I think I just poison jab to make sure it died instead of knockoff and take Drain Punch and take a risk. So Gallade's at a little bit fewer HP, but other than that, we're pretty much back where we started. And he shows Seismic Toss rather than Nightshade, which I guess makes sense since I have no ghosts, but I do have a normal type. But it's kind of nice because it does activate Rocky Helmet, whereas Nightshade does not. So I try Iron Tail as he recovers and it misses, so that kind of sucks. You know, I probably should have got Rocks up there, of course. But of course, just expecting Taunt on that turn. I'm going to continue to go for Iron Tail here as he does indeed Taunt. And it misses again, and just for my own satisfaction, here's what Iron Tail would have looked like had it hit. I just wanted to show that. Anyway, so clearly Snake Man is not doing very well here, and by now we've seen Recover, Knock Off, Taunt, and I think we've seen all 4 moves. And Seismic Toss, yeah. So, you know, I should keep in mind here I have seen all 4 moves, but I'm pretty sure later in the game I forget this. But anyway, so he's Seismic Tossing, and there, you know, I bring Gregor in, like I said before, trying to land that Toxic, and I missed 3 attacks in a row. 2 were Iron Tail, which, you know, I kind of expect to miss, but that Toxic was going to be so big. You know, he had no Cleric, I don't think, no way to remove that Toxic. That would have been huge, making sure that Deoxys D is going to be, you know, relatively useless. So anyway, in comes Alakazam, and we're going to have to try to take it down with damage, which is not, you know, what I was going to exactly prefer to do. It'd be much nicer if this thing was toxic, but, you know, have to live with it. So anyway, I'm just going to set up a sub, and, you know, that was kind of a foolish sub right there, to be honest. I'd already seen all 4 moves. There was nothing that greatly threatened Megazam, and as it ends up, you know, it works out okay as he taunts, and, you know, so we kind of have a sub. So it ended up to be okay, but I still think it was pretty much a bad play. Probably just taunting just to make sure I don't throw Calm Minds everywhere. And he takes under half from Shadow Ball, which I believe I am Modest Max, so that kind of tells me I think he's specially invested. But I think in the long run we can win out on this, as he's now kind of going to be forced to recover. We'll eventually get a special defense drop, and hopefully we can get Magic Man out of this pretty much all right. So that's what we're going to do. You know, he's taken under half from Shadow Ball, so he can slightly gain HP, especially with leftovers, but eventually that 20% is going to proc, and we're going to be able to 2-hit KO. And we're just going to keep going Shadow Ball here. There's not really much reason to do anything else. You know, this is my Mega. This is, you know, supposedly one of the better things to take knockoff. Too bad it's still weak to it. But he does pack it. Of course, Seismic Toss is only going to do 50 points. So and here comes a Shadow Ball, and he just goes ahead and knocks off, which I did actually put, I believe, 200 HP EVs in here. I didn't think I needed max speed. I just wanted to make sure we outsped Jolly Terrakion. And so I just put honestly just a few speed EVs in here to make sure I outsped it as the Mega. And there we go. So we're able to take down Deoxys D. We got 2 crucial defensive cogs down. And here's a Rotom Heat, which, you know, used Will-O-Wisp before. We DC again. So at this point, you know, I missed 2 Iron Tails. The battle, for some reason, attempts to resume itself. I missed 2 Iron Tails. You know, I missed that big Toxic. I didn't really know if we could recreate that effectively. And so we proposed a couple of different ideas. And ultimately what we decided to do was try to get back to where we were and then just use Showdown. Now, those of you who have been with me a while know that I really don't like any kind of simulator, Showdown included. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to make an exception for this. It's either this or we can, you know, go to bed, because it's, you know, about midnight at the time we're playing this. And, you know, he was already tired, of course, himself. He just got in from his trip. So we decided, you know what, we need to try to get this done tonight. So let's go ahead and go the showdown route, and so that's what we're going to go into now. Alright, so this is the third time's a charm. It's definitely not going to disconnect on this. So make a showdown account really quick, import the team stat for stat. We also get to do level 50 all, so we're going to get to keep it as accurate to the game as possible. And yeah, this is just us going through the motions, trying to recreate the scenario. We could have started fresh potentially, but you know, I had that play early on with the Sylveon, and without that element of surprise, that was going to be a lot harder for me to kill, I felt. So, you know, it's not going to be too big of a deal here. We're going to get back to close enough to where we were at in terms of the HP percentages and stuff that's knocked out, etc., etc. So here we go. Mega Alakazam just knocked out Deoxys defense, and now Rotom's going to come in. So it did use Will-O-Wisp earlier, so I've got enough HP that I think I'm going to sub. And, you know, see if it wants to do one of those. Never mind, that is a Scarfed Rotom with Will-O-Wisp, and just takes Alakazam out. And I see the half special attack, and I figure, maybe we can go into Cloyster, and, you know, we can threaten a Shell Smash or something. You know, I'm also Scarfed, and that Overheat that missed was probably the biggest play of the game. Even though it was half special attack, Cloyster is so frail, especially when it's not invested, would have done well over half, and you'll certainly see why that's relevant later on. So in comes Terrak, and I don't know anything about it. I haven't seen it yet. If it's Scarfed, that's really, really bad, so I'm going to get out of here, go into Whimsicott, who should take one of any hit, and yeah, we'll just have to see. So we set up a sub, so that's good. It tells me it's not Scarfed, and from here we can just break the sub with Giga Drain, and I should live one of anything, which ends up to be a Stone Edge, and I actually avoid the Stone Edge, which looks really bad, especially right after that Overheat miss, but you'll see right here why that actually wasn't that big a deal, as Conkeldurr comes in and is going to eat a Giga Drain. And if you noticed in the first game, Conkeldurr did take a Spec Surf from Suicune, so there should have been some damage on it already, and basically with that Stone Edge miss, with leaving this Ice Punch, allowed is for that extra Giga Drain to get on Conkeldurr to kind of get it back down to where it should have been. That's one part of the battle we didn't recreate, so it ends up to be roughly where it was anyway. But anyway, he's going to be able to knock this Whimsicott out with Ice and Drain Punch, which I think is actually Conkeldurr's first kill of the year, which is kind of surprising. But anyway, so I still don't know anything about the Nidoking. I know I'm going to be pretty much straight against the Terrakion, that is not Scarfed and Cloyster is. However, he does have Mach Punch, and that's why that Overheat miss was huge. And if not for that Overheat miss, I'm pretty sure it would have done well over half, and then that Mach Punch likely would have killed me, and that's Cold Man is pretty much all the main offense I have left. So Icicle Spear is able to take that out. I didn't want to risk the Razor Shell miss, even though that would be super effective against both of his remaining guys. I don't think it quite would have killed Conkeldurr anyway. So in comes Terrak again. I don't have Whimsicott this time, but I do have Gallade. So we'll see what it wants to do, and wants to close combat. There was a chance I could have killed it right there, but I'm just going to go into Gallade, and I see now it's got Life Orb, so that's awesome to know. I can maybe get a sneak on it. I'm a little bit worried. I think I should be able to break a sub with a sneak due to the defense drops as well, but instead in comes Nidoking, and what I should probably do here is check if it's Scarfed or not by just going for an attack, but instead I just go for damage in the form of Shadow Sneak. And thank goodness he goes for Earthquake, and I see Life Orb. So, you know, that's one of his few attacks that actually will reveal Life Orb. And when I see that Life Orb on there, I think, alright, I think we can get this now, because that Terrak is Life Orb. Even if Icicle Spear is going to obviously knock out Nidoking as it's not Scarfed, I'm pretty sure I would live a Sucker Punch too. It wouldn't do over, like, pretty sure Sucker Punch would not do over half. And yeah, the Terrak is not Scarfed. Even if it does survive Icicle Spear, due to some HP investment, it's probably going to kill itself to Life Orb, and then I've got Steelix left, but I'm actually just able to take it out with Icicle Spear, and there we go. We pull we pull this one out in a 2-0 over John, and I'm going to have to pause now to recollect some thoughts here. Alright, so I probably can't heap enough praise on John for the way we were able to come together and resolve this whole situation with the delays and the disconnects. You know, I'm sure he came in from his trip Sunday night, after being stuck in traffic. He was tired, ready to go to sleep, and instead he stayed up with me. We were able to have this game and resolve all of these issues that we had with it. You know, certainly we're both competitors. Every week we want to go out there and win and compete, but more than that, we want to make sure the result of every game is something fair, something legitimate, and that's kind of what sportsmanship is all about. And you know, it is a league based on sports, so it should probably come as no surprise that that's going to be at a premium. He would have been well within his rights to just accept the forfeit loss on my part, which, you know, probably would have been like a 3-0, I guess. And if you had asked me before the game started what was the most likely outcome, I'd probably have told you 3-0 him. But, you know, he didn't want that. If the shoe had been on the other foot, I wouldn't have wanted that. You know, we both want to get this GBA content out to you guys. It's kind of here to entertain everyone. You know, I enjoy making these videos. You know, I was going to be, you know, very distraught this week from not being able to post a GBA video. But, you know, I was able to post one anyway. And I'm certainly going to do my darndest to make sure this situation doesn't happen again. We have discussed some guidelines, nothing like hard set in stone, you know, maybe for next year. I'm going to make sure, you know, we get early contact and, you know, set up specific times and etc. and make sure this situation doesn't happen again. And even though we were able to walk out with a 2-0, it did feel like a shared win. As I think he said it best, it felt like we were having more teamwork than competition with working together to make sure we could get the game recreated as fairly as possible. So, you know, certainly proud of this win. It's our second win of our career, but I'm more proud of the cooperation we showed. And, you know, if that overheated hit and he would have won, I certainly would have been proud of a loss too. You know, much rather would have had it go that way than just go with that forfeit loss. So, you know, at least we got something to post. Clearly, John's a man of character, so, you know, go and check his channel out, certainly. And, yeah, we wish him the best of luck the rest of this season. You know, we are both in the same conference, the Johto Conference, so we are competing with him for a playoff spot. We got to make the top 3 to make a playoff push. But we don't play him again directly this season. And, you know, I definitely think he's got a team that's stacked enough to make the playoffs. He's aware of it, too. I know that's his personal goal. And, you know, I definitely think he'll be making the playoffs and maybe go far and win the whole league. But we'll certainly see. Hope things go well for him from here on out. And I guess we'll cue Pokemon of the game. And I guess I kind of have to give it to Cloyster just for putting up 4-0, those gaudy numbers. And on top of that, that crucial dodge on the -2 overheat that honestly I was really sleeping on. I didn't think it was going to do too much at all. I just saw -2. I was like, oh, okay, Cloyster's going to be fine. But, you know, if that had hit and then the Mach Punch ensuing, it's probably New Orleans' game at that point. So that was certainly very critical. I could definitely give this to a number of other things. You know, definitely other key contributors. You know, as always, it's a team win. But I guess we'll give it to Cloyster this week. And yeah, you know, I was really distraught this week. Didn't think we were gonna get a vid to post, and just so thankful to John that we were able to, you know, make something nice happen. To quote Final Fantasy Tactics, I got a good feeling out of this week when I was, you know, gonna be kind of down in the dumps. Next week, though, we're going up against I think the first team we've faced that is actually ranked lower than us, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers, mained by Numb Nexus. And Nexus kind of had the consensus worst draft out of everyone, definitely out of the expansion teams and probably out of everyone in general. But, you know, even though he's got some, you know, maybe not a great team, you know, it's not necessarily about what you have, but how you use it. And, you know, we certainly can't take this one lightly. You can't really sleep any week in the GBA, to be honest. At least not until you've clinched that playoff spot. And even then, you want to be #1, so you have a first-round bye. But yeah, we're definitely going to prepare for this hard. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week from Cleveland. But we have our first trade of the season coming through. And as you can probably guess from the Irontail antics earlier, it is Steelix who we're going to bid farewell to. You know, we picked him up in the 4th round. And that was our last of our 3-year contract picks, mostly as a mascot pickup, also trying to cover the rock and electric weaknesses of Suicune and Zapdos. But ultimately, you know, I kind of knew it when I picked him. You know, Steelix is not a great physical wall. It doesn't have reliable recovery. It's got some crucial weaknesses to big physical types. And it's just kind of too much for me to bring him, you know, more often than not. So we're going to let him go. You know, we certainly enjoyed his time with us as our mascot character of sorts. But we still got Magneton hanging around. And here's the trade we were able to pick up. So I figured about the only team I might be able to foist Steelix off on was Shady Penguin and the New York Yankees, who had had not been using their 4th round pick in the form of Pinsir. Shady, you know, doesn't have a steel type. He's got Golbat and Vaporeon, which kind of cover up on Steelix's weaknesses pretty well. So I felt like he could probably use Steelix better. And unfortunately, though, Pinsir just wasn't really going to give me any extra offense. And so when I saw Shady and Fizzy Stardust of the Atlanta Hawluchas in trade talks Pinsir for Slurpuff, I kind of inserted myself in there and proposed a triangle trade wherein Shady would get Steelix and I would end up with Slurpuff. So that is indeed what happened. We just kind of rotated there clockwise. And so now I have ended up with Slurpuff. The way the contract swaps work, Shady and I both have ours for 3 years, so Pinsir goes down to a 2-year contract, and Slurpuff comes up to a 3-year contract, Steelix staying at a 3-year contract. So Slurpuff is obviously not the most threatening thing in the world. It gets walled, I know this, by any steel type, you know, with the belly drum set. Of course, it just got play rough in return for coverage. But, you know, at least it is an offensive potential thing that I could bring, whereas Steelix, I don't think anyone is going to be threatened by Steelix or really account for it at all. You have a special attack on your team, you're probably okay against Steelix. You know, Slurpuff, you know, I wouldn't have wanted to pick it up if it was just the belly drum set, but it's also got a couple other nice utilities. It's got Wish, Aromatherapy. You know, if you don't want to go with the belly drum set, you could even go special with T-Bolt and Flamethrower, and you know, Sweet Veil to block sleep. You know, not the worst ability in the world either, certainly. So it's got some stuff that it can potentially do for us, and looking forward to see what it can do. I don't actually have a great nickname, so if you guys have a nice Mega Man nickname for Slurpuff, please do post in the comments below. But yeah, welcome to the team, Slurpuff. You're going to be with us for 3 years unless we have another trade. So yeah, another thing I'm kind of hoping happens is an Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire Slurpuff. They're of course going to have the move tutor most likely, and the elemental punches come back. Really hoping he's going to pick up those, at least Fire Punch. He does learn Flamethrower and Thunderbolt already, and you know, a lot of things that learn the punches don't exactly have great big arms anyway. So hoping Slurpuff picks up the punches. That will definitely increase the value of this trade, but we'll see when Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire come out for next season. So thanks for watching, guys. See you for next week against Cleveland. Later days.